Maya Torres had been dead for 12 years, at least according to her Army service record. The official report listed her as KIA, Afghanistan-Pakistan border region, Operation Silent Thunder, communications equipment failure during enemy contact. But the dead don't operate small-town radio stations in the mountains of Oregon, and they certainly don't monitor encrypted military frequencies during their overnight shifts at KCSF 94.7 FM. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. At 35, Maya looked nothing like the decorated staff sergeant who'd once guided entire battalions through hostile territory using nothing but her voice and an intimate knowledge of radio frequencies that could penetrate any interference. Her gentle hands spoke of years adjusting sound equipment and spinning records instead of operating military communication arrays under enemy fire. Her warm smile reflected countless hours helping local residents request their favorite songs rather than coordinating life-or-death rescue operations in combat zones. The people of Cascade Falls, Oregon, knew her as the night DJ who could make anyone feel less alone during the quiet mountain hours. A woman who seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to know exactly what songs someone needed to hear, whose voice could calm worried parents during storm warnings, and whose technical expertise kept their little station running when bigger operations would have given up. What they didn't know was that Maya Torres had once been called by a different name in classified military circles. She was known as Echo. The reputation of Echo was legendary among communication specialists. She was the voice that could reach anyone, anywhere, through any interference. Enemy jamming couldn't stop her. Atmospheric disturbances barely slowed her down. Equipment failures that would leave other operators helpless were just puzzles for her to solve. In 6 years of active duty, Echo had never lost a patrol, never failed to guide lost soldiers home, never met a communication challenge she couldn't overcome. Maya's journey to this small Oregon mountain town had begun with a mission that officially never happened. Operation Silent Thunder was classified so deeply that most of the people who authorized it had been required to forget it existed. The mission: infiltrate a remote valley along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border where intelligence suggested a major arms trafficking operation was supplying weapons to multiple terrorist organizations. Maya's role was critical: establish and maintain communication links for a deep reconnaissance team operating beyond the range of normal military support. The operation went wrong in ways that still haunted her dreams 12 years later. The arms dealers weren't just selling to terrorists, they were being supplied by someone with access to American military equipment, current, top-of-the-line gear that should have been impossible for civilians to obtain. When Maya's team discovered shipping containers full of weapons marked with U.S. military identification codes, they realized they'd stumbled into something far bigger than a simple smuggling operation. That's when the shooting started. But the bullets hadn't come from the suspected arms dealers. They'd come from coordinates that Maya's own command had provided as safe zones. Someone with access to their operational plans had set up an ambush, and Maya's entire team was walking straight into it. In the chaos that followed, Maya made a decision that saved her life and doomed her identity. She'd gone dark, abandoning her communication protocols and disappearing into the mountainous terrain that she had studied obsessively during mission preparation. For 3 weeks, Maya had survived in hostile territory while listening to her own military search for her remains. She'd monitored encrypted channels as her commanders debated whether to expand the search or declare her KIA. She'd heard her memorial service planning. She'd listened to her own obituary being drafted by people who'd never met her but were tasked with summarizing a life they knew nothing about. But most chillingly, she'd intercepted communications that proved the ambush hadn't been accidental. Someone in the command structure had deliberately compromised Operation Silent Thunder. the same someone who'd been facilitating the arms trafficking they were supposed to be investigating. When Maya realized that her own chain of command included people who'd tried to kill her, she made the hardest decision of her life. She let Maya Torres die. Using survival skills that had been drilled into her during special operations training, Maya had made her way across hundreds of miles of hostile territory to a refugee camp where she'd convinced aid workers that she was a displaced civilian whose family had been killed in fighting. Her military knowledge, combined with her ability to speak multiple regional dialects, had made her story convincing enough to secure transport out of the country on a humanitarian relief flight. From there, she'd use contacts she'd developed during her years in military intelligence, people who owed favors or who understood that sometimes good soldiers needed to disappear for good reasons. It had taken her 8 months to create a new identity complete enough to start a new life. 8 months of living in the shadows, constantly looking over her shoulder, wondering if the people who'd tried to kill her once would try again. Maya had chosen Cascade Falls for its isolation, its distance from major military installations, and its perfect radio propagation characteristics. The mountains that surrounded the town created natural barriers to electronic surveillance while providing excellent conditions for the kind of radio work that had become her new profession. She'd bought the struggling radio station with money she'd saved during 6 years of military service, turning it into both her livelihood and her fortress. The station's remote location allowed her to maintain equipment that most people would never notice. Alongside the standard FM broadcasting gear, Maya had installed communication arrays capable of monitoring frequencies across the electromagnetic spectrum. She told herself it was just paranoia, a way to stay aware of potential threats. But truthfully, after years of being the voice that guided others to safety, the silence of civilian life sometimes felt suffocating. Her nightly routine at KCSF had become a form of meditation. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Maya would broadcast a mix of classic rock, country, and folk music, interspersed with weather reports, local news, and the kind of gentle commentary that made listeners feel like they were talking to an old friend. During commercial breaks and quiet songs, she'd scan military frequencies, monitoring the distant voices of soldiers and airmen conducting operations she'd once been part of. It was during one of these quiet scans, on a Tuesday night in November, when the first snow of the season was beginning to dust the peaks around Cascade Falls, that Maya heard something that changed everything. The transmission was weak, fragmented by atmospheric interference and the kind of electromagnetic noise that suggested the broadcasting equipment was damaged. But the voice pattern, the syntax, and most importantly, the call signs being used were unmistakably military. Someone was in trouble, somewhere in the mountain wilderness, and they were broadcasting on frequencies that hadn't been used since Operation Silent Thunder. Any station, this is Lima 7 Actual. We are lost patrol, 2 men down, requesting immediate guidance to extraction point. Broadcasting on emergency frequency, Tango Whiskey 77, Echo, if you're out there, we need you. Maya's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor of her broadcast booth. Lima 7 had been her reconnaissance team's designation during Operation Silent Thunder. Tango Whiskey 77 had been their emergency frequency, known only to members of their unit. And the voice asking for Echo? That voice belonged to Lieutenant Alex Rivera, who, according to official records, had died in the same ambush that had supposedly killed Maya Torres 12 years ago. Maya stared at her radio equipment as if it had betrayed her, her hands trembling as she reached for the transmit button. 12 years of carefully constructed silence, 12 years of letting the world believe Echo was dead, and now Alex Rivera's voice was crackling through speakers in a radio station that wasn't supposed to exist on any military frequency. The transmission repeated, weaker this time, distorted by what sounded like equipment damage and atmospheric interference. Lima 7 Actual to any station, 2 casualties, grid reference uncertain, need immediate guidance to extraction. Echo, we know you're monitoring. Please respond. Maya's finger hovered over the transmit button. Responding would shatter the life she'd built in Cascade Falls. It would expose her location to whoever might be monitoring military frequencies. It would confirm to the world that Staff Sergeant Maya Torres, call sign Echo, had never actually died in Operation Silent Thunder. But the alternative was letting soldiers die when she had the skills to save them. She keyed the microphone, her voice automatically falling into the calm, professional tone that had guided countless patrols through hostile territory. Lima 7 Actual, this is Echo. I read you weak but clear. Transmit your status and approximate location. The relief in Rivera's voice was immediate and palpable. Echo, thank God. We've been trying to reach anyone for 6 hours. We're somewhere in the Cascade Range, Oregon. GPS is down. Radio is damaged, and we've got 2 men with serious injuries. We need to reach Extraction Point Bravo within 12 hours or— Lima 7, slow down, Maya interrupted, her mind already shifting into the operational mode she hadn't used in over a decade. Give me terrain features. What do you see around you? Heavy forest, steep terrain, running water to our east. We can see 3 peaks to the northwest, one with what looks like a fire tower. There's a cleared area about 2 clicks south that might be a logging operation. Maya's eyes went to the topographical maps she kept mounted on her broadcast booth wall. As someone who'd made her living in these mountains for 8 years, she knew every peak, every valley, every logging road in a 100-mile radius. Rivera's description placed his team somewhere in the Willamette National Forest, probably 30 miles southeast of her position. Lima 7, I have your approximate position. But I need to understand something. Your unit designation, your frequency usage, your call signs, none of this should exist anymore. Operation Silent Thunder was classified terminated 12 years ago. There was a long pause before Rivera responded, and when he did, his voice carried a weight that Maya recognized from her own years of carrying dangerous secrets. Echo, we've been operating under deep cover since the official termination of Silent Thunder. The mission never ended. The arms trafficking network we were investigating didn't disappear when they tried to kill us. It got bigger. Maya felt the familiar chill that came with hearing confirmation of something she'd suspected but hoped wasn't true. Rivera, are you saying the entire operation was a setup from the beginning? Negative. The mission was legitimate, but someone in the command structure was feeding information to the traffickers. When we got too close to identifying the source, they tried to eliminate the entire team. You disappeared before they could confirm your death. The rest of us, we went deeper underground. Maya's mind raced through the implications. If Rivera and other members of her team had survived the ambush, if they had been operating independently for 12 years, then everything she thought she knew about that night was wrong. How many others? 4 of us made it out. We've been tracking the network ever since, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to expose it. But 3 days ago, our cover was blown. Someone figured out we were still alive, still investigating. They sent a cleanup team. The pieces began to fall into place with terrible clarity. That's why you're in Oregon. You're running. We were heading for a safe house when we were ambushed again. Lost our vehicle, most of our equipment. Sergeant Park took shrapnel in his leg. Corporal Mitchell has what looks like a concussion. We need immediate extraction, and we need someone we can trust to coordinate it. Maya looked at her radio setup, at the comfortable life she'd built in Cascade Falls, at the snow beginning to accumulate on her broadcast booth windows. She'd spent 12 years convincing herself that Maya Torres was dead, that Echo was just a memory. But soldiers were dying in her mountains, and the conspiracy that had tried to kill her was still active. Lima 7, I'm going to guide you to a safe location where you can wait for extraction. But first, I need you to understand something. If I do this, if I break cover to help you, there's no going back. The people who tried to kill us 12 years ago will know I'm alive. Echo, Rivera's voice was steady despite the obvious pain and exhaustion. They already know. That's how they found us. Someone's been monitoring old operational frequencies, waiting for survivors to surface. Our transmission tonight just painted a target on both of us. Maya felt the weight of inevitability settling on her shoulders.
The life she'd built in Cascade Falls had always been borrowed time. She'd known that someday the past would catch up with her. She just hadn't expected it to arrive in the form of XX and X-Vera's voice calling for help through a damaged radio in the Oregon wilderness.
It's good to hear your voice again. As Maya began plotting coordinates and escape routes on her topographical maps, she realized that the woman who'd been playing country music and taking song requests for the past 8 years was about to disappear forever. Echo was operational again, and this time, the mission would either expose the conspiracy that had destroyed their lives or get them all killed in the process. But for the first time in 12 years, Maya Torres felt truly alive. While Rivera and his team held position in the Oregon wilderness, Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, accessing databases she hadn't touched in over a decade. Her radio station's basement contained more than just backup equipment and old vinyl records. Hidden behind a false wall was a server room that would have impressed most intelligence agencies, equipped with satellite uplinks, encrypted communication arrays, and access to information networks that officially didn't exist. Maya had spent 12 years preparing for this moment, even though she'd hoped it would never come. Every piece of equipment, every backup system, every security protocol had been designed with one purpose: to allow Echo to become operational again if the conspiracy that destroyed Operation Silent Thunder ever resurfaced. As her screens filled with classified files she'd archived before her supposed death, Maya began reconstructing the events of that night, 12 years ago. The mission briefing had seemed straightforward: investigate reports of advanced American weaponry appearing in terrorist hands. Intelligence suggested a major trafficking operation was based in a remote valley along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, and Lima 7 was tasked with gathering evidence while maintaining absolute secrecy. The team had been perfect for the mission. Lieutenant Alex Rivera was a natural leader with an uncanny ability to read terrain and enemy movements. Sergeant David Park was their demolitions expert, capable of identifying any explosive device or weapon system. Corporal Jake Mitchell specialized in signals intelligence, able to intercept and decode enemy communications, and Maya, call sign Echo, was their lifeline to the outside world, the voice that could reach anyone, anywhere, regardless of interference or equipment failure. For 2 weeks, they'd operated flawlessly. Their reconnaissance had confirmed that the trafficking operation was massive, involving shipments worth millions of dollars and weapons systems that should have been impossible for civilians to obtain. But as they documented the evidence, patterns emerged that changed everything. The weapons weren't stolen or purchased through black market channels. They were being delivered through official logistics networks, complete with proper documentation and military transport. Someone with high-level access was selling American military equipment directly to arms dealers who were supplying terrorist organizations across 3 countries. Maya's investigation had identified the source, a network of corrupt officials spanning multiple agencies, led by someone with access to the highest levels of military intelligence. The conspiracy wasn't just about money, it was about maintaining conflicts that justified massive defense spending while profiting from both sides of the wars they were perpetuating. When Lima 7 had transmitted their findings to command, they'd been told to maintain position while extraction was arranged. But Maya's communication intercepts had revealed the truth. Instead of extraction, they were being set up for elimination. The arms dealers had been warned about their presence, and a joint operation between corrupt American officials and local mercenaries was being coordinated to ensure no evidence of the trafficking network survived. The attack had come at dawn, just as Maya was preparing to warn her team about the betrayal. Mortars had struck their position with precision that suggested detailed knowledge of their defensive setup. Sniper fire had come from coordinates that their own command had designated as secure. The ambush had been planned with intimate knowledge of Lima 7's capabilities, equipment, and procedures. In the chaos, Maya had made split-second decisions that saved her life. Instead of following extraction protocols that she now knew were compromised, she destroyed her primary communication equipment and activated a backup system that operated on frequencies unknown to their handlers. She'd watched through her scope as Rivera, Park, and Mitchell had used demolition charges to create a diversion, disappearing into the mountain terrain while enemy forces converged on their last known position.
Maya had monitored search and rescue operations for 3 days, listening to her own commanders coordinate with the same people who'd tried to kill her team. When she heard discussions about ensuring complete elimination of evidence and confirming no survivors, she realized that returning to military custody would mean death. The decision to disappear had been agonizing but necessary. Using survival skills and escape routes they'd studied during mission preparation, Maya had made her way to a refugee camp 200 miles away. Her knowledge of local languages and customs, combined with her ability to blend into civilian populations, had made her story convincing enough to secure transport out of the country. But even as she'd built her new life in Cascade Falls, Maya had never stopped investigating. Her hidden server room contained 12 years of accumulated intelligence about the conspiracy that had destroyed her team. Financial records showing money flowing from defense contracts to offshore accounts. Communication intercepts revealing coordination between American officials and arms dealers. Personnel files documenting a network of corrupt operatives embedded throughout the intelligence community.
The man at the center of it all was Director Nathan Cross, who'd risen through the ranks of the Defense Intelligence Agency during the years since Operation Silent Thunder. Cross had been a mid-level analyst when Maya's team had stumbled onto his trafficking network. Now he was in position to influence intelligence operations across multiple agencies, with the power to authorize operations that could eliminate anyone who threatened his organization. Maya's investigation had revealed that Cross's network had grown far beyond simple arms trafficking. They were now involved in drug smuggling, human trafficking, and money laundering operations that spanned multiple continents. The profits were being used to fund off-the-books intelligence operations that served private interests rather than national security. Most disturbing of all, Maya had discovered that Cross's network had been systematically eliminating anyone who posed a threat to their operations. Military personnel who asked too many questions died in training accidents. Journalists investigating defense contracts suffered mysterious illnesses. Congressional investigators faced career-ending scandals based on fabricated evidence. As Maya reviewed Rivera's current situation, she realized that his team's 12-year investigation had probably uncovered the same information she'd been gathering independently. They were all pieces of the same puzzle, survivors of the same betrayal, carrying evidence that could bring down one of the most dangerous conspiracies in American history. But first, she had to keep them alive long enough to deliver that evidence to people who could act on it.
Maya's fingers danced across her radio controls as she established secure communication with Rivera's team, her voice cutting through the mountain static with the authority that had once guided entire battalions through hostile territory. Lima 7, this is Echo. I have your position triangulated. You're in Sector 77 of the Willamette National Forest, approximately 32 miles southeast of my location. Copy, Echo. What's our move? Rivera's voice was tighter now, pain and exhaustion evident despite his efforts to maintain operational discipline. Maya studied her topographical displays, mentally calculating routes that would avoid main roads and populated areas, while providing cover from both ground and aerial surveillance. There's an abandoned logging station at grid reference 479211, bearing northwest from your position. It's got solid structures for shelter and multiple escape routes if you're compromised. Can your injured make a 3-mile movement through rough terrain? Negative on foot movement for Park. Shrapnel hit an artery in his leg. He's lost significant blood and needs immediate medical attention. Maya's tactical mind immediately shifted to contingency planning. Injured personnel complicated everything, but she'd guided wounded soldiers through wharf situations. Understood. There's a Forest Service road approximately 1 click north of your position. I'm going to guide you there, then coordinate vehicle pickup. Echo, we don't have extraction assets. Our support network was compromised when they found us. Leave that to me, Lima 7. I've got resources they don't know about. What Maya didn't tell Rivera was that her resources consisted of exactly one person, retired Colonel James Mitchell, her former commanding officer, who'd been quietly investigating the same conspiracy for the past decade. Mitchell had reached out to her 5 years ago through carefully coded messages in veterans publications, confirming her suspicions that she wasn't the only survivor seeking answers about Operation Silent Thunder. As Maya prepared to contact Mitchell, her monitoring equipment detected something that sent ice through her veins. Military radio traffic was spiking across multiple frequencies, with references to search and rescue operations being activated in the Oregon Cascade region. Someone was mobilizing significant resources to find Rivera's team, and they were doing it under the cover of legitimate emergency response protocols. Lima 7, we've got problems. I'm reading military search assets being deployed to your area. Grid pattern search, multiple aircraft, ground teams with tracking equipment. Someone's pulling out all the stops to find you. Rivera's response confirmed her worst fears. Copy that, Echo. We've been monitoring the same traffic. Question is, are they here to rescue us or eliminate us? Maya's encrypted phone buzzed with a message that made her stomach drop. The text was brief but terrifying. Echo operational. Cross has activated Cerberus protocol. Recommend immediate relocation. Shepard. Shepard was Colonel Mitchell's code name, and Cerberus protocol was something Maya had hoped never to hear about again. It was Cross's ultimate contingency plan for dealing with survivors of Operation Silent Thunder, a coordinated operation using legitimate military resources to eliminate targets under the cover of classified national security operations. Lima 7, situation has escalated dramatically. The people hunting you have authorization to use military assets. They're going to claim you're foreign operatives or domestic terrorists to justify whatever they do to you. Understood, Echo. So what's the play? Maya made a decision that would either save them all or get them killed within the next few hours. We're going to do something they won't expect. Instead of running from their search operation, we're going to use it as cover to get you out of the mountains. She activated her emergency broadcasting system, the one she used for severe weather warnings and community emergencies. But instead of warning about storms, Maya was about to create a different kind of chaos. This is KCSF 94.7 FM with an emergency bulletin. The Deschutes County Sheriff's Department has requested immediate assistance in locating 4 hikers who failed to return from a backcountry expedition in the Willamette National Forest. The missing party includes 2 individuals requiring immediate medical attention. If you're in the forest area and hear calls for help, please contact authorities immediately. The announcement served multiple purposes. It provided legitimate cover for Rivera's team if they were spotted by civilian aircraft or ground searchers. It created confusion about the actual nature of the search operation. And most importantly, it established Maya as someone with insider knowledge of the situation, which would make Cross's people more desperate to locate her. Within minutes of her broadcast, Maya's monitoring equipment detected encrypted communications that confirmed her strategy was working. Cross's operational controllers were scrambling to understand how a civilian radio station had obtained information about their classified search operation. They were running traces on her broadcast signal, trying to identify her equipment and location. Maya smiled grimly as she watched their electronic signatures painting targets on her displays. Let them come to Cascade Falls. She'd spent 8 years turning her radio station into a fortress, and she had advantages they couldn't possibly anticipate.
Lima 7, I'm uploading navigation coordinates to your backup GPS unit. Follow the route exactly. It will take you through terrain that's difficult for their tracking equipment to penetrate. ETA to pickup point is 90 minutes. Echo, how do you know our equipment specifications? Because I've been preparing for this day for 12 years, Rivera. I know everything about their capabilities, their procedures, and their weaknesses. Trust me and follow my guidance. As Maya coordinated Rivera's movement through the forest, she activated defensive systems throughout her radio station. Motion sensors came online around the perimeter. Communication jammers prepared to disrupt enemy coordination. And, hidden in her basement server room, automated programs began uploading 12 years of accumulated evidence to secure servers around the world. If Cross's people managed to eliminate her tonight, they would discover that killing Echo would only trigger the release of information that would destroy their entire network. But Maya had no intention of making it easy for them. The hunt was just beginning, and they were about to learn why Echo had never lost a patrol. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The first sign that Cross's forces had located her radio station came as a subtle shift in the electromagnetic spectrum around Cascade Falls. Maya's monitoring equipment detected the electronic signatures of military-grade surveillance aircraft circling at high altitude, their sensors probing for communication equipment that shouldn't exist in a small-town radio station. Maya keyed her microphone to Rivera's frequency, while simultaneously activating countermeasures she'd hoped never to use. Lima 7? They found my location. You need to accelerate your timeline to the pickup point. Echo, what's your status? Do you need immediate extraction? Negative, Lima 7. I'm exactly where I need to be. This station has capabilities they don't know about, and I'm going to use their focus on me to get you clear of the search zone. What Maya didn't tell Rivera was that her radio station had been designed as both sanctuary and sacrifice. If necessary, she could hold off a significant force while her automated systems completed the upload of evidence that would expose Cross's entire network. But she'd also prepared escape routes that would allow her to disappear again if the situation became hopeless. 30 miles away, Director Nathan Cross stood in a mobile command center that had been positioned on a ridge overlooking the Willamette National Forest. At 52, Cross had spent the past 12 years building a network that stretched across multiple agencies and generated hundreds of millions of dollars in illegal profits. He'd eliminated dozens of potential threats, manipulated intelligence operations to serve private interests, and convinced himself that his actions were necessary for national security. But the voice of Echo, broadcasting from a civilian radio station, represented his greatest fear. A witness to his crimes who possessed both the evidence and the credibility to destroy everything he'd built. Sir, we've confirmed the broadcast origin, his technical operator reported. KCSF 94.7 FM, licensed to Maya Torres, operating from a station in Cascade Falls, Oregon. The equipment signature suggests significantly more powerful transmission capabilities than listed in FCC records. Cross studied the intelligence file his team had compiled on Maya Torres in the 6 hours since Echo had first responded to Rivera's distress call. On paper, she was exactly what she appeared to be, a former military communications specialist who'd purchased a struggling radio station and transformed it into a successful local operation. But Cross's instincts, honed by decades of intelligence work, told him that Maya Torres and Staff Sergeant Maya Torres were the same person. What do we know about the property? Cross demanded. 40 acres of mountainous terrain, purchased 8 years ago through a private trust. The main building houses the radio station, but ground-penetrating radar shows extensive underground construction. Power consumption is triple what a normal radio operation would require. Cross felt the familiar chill that came with recognizing a worthy adversary. Echo hadn't simply disappeared after Operation Silent Thunder. She'd been preparing for war. Signal analysis of her transmissions? Professional-grade encryption, frequency-hopping protocols, and communication techniques consistent with special operations training. Sir, this isn't a civilian playing with military radios. This is a trained operator with access to classified communication methods. Then we treat her as a hostile combatant, Cross decided. Activate tactical teams. I want that facility secured and everyone inside eliminated. Make it look like a gas explosion or electrical fire. No survivors, no evidence. As Cross's teams began moving toward Cascade Falls, Maya was orchestrating a complex operation from her broadcast booth. Her voice remained calm and professional as she guided Rivera's team through the forest, while simultaneously coordinating with Colonel Mitchell, who was driving toward the pickup coordinates in a modified ambulance that could provide medical care for the wounded Sergeant Park. Shepard, this is Echo. Lima 7 is 15 minutes from your position. Be advised, hostile forces are converging on multiple locations. They've got air assets, ground teams, and authorization to use lethal force. Mitchell's voice carried the weight of 26 years of military service and 5 years of investigating the conspiracy that had destroyed so many lives. Copy, Echo. I've got medical supplies and secure transportation. What's your extraction plan? Negative on extraction, Shepard. Someone needs to buy time for the evidence upload to complete. My position gives me the best tactical advantage.
"Maya, don't do this alone. We've lost too many people to this conspiracy already." Maya's response was interrupted by proximity alarms indicating vehicles approaching her station. Through her security cameras, she could see black SUVs positioning themselves around her property while armed figures and tactical gear prepared to assault her position. "Contact, contact, contact," Maya transmitted. "Multiple hostiles approaching my position. Lima 7, maintain course to extraction point. Do not deviate to assist. Shepard, you are clear to proceed with pickup."
Maya's fingers flew across her control panel, activating defensive systems that transformed her peaceful radio station into a fortress. External floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the tactical teams and destroying their night vision advantage. Communication jammers began broadcasting interference across multiple frequencies, disrupting their coordination. And hidden speakers throughout her property began broadcasting her voice at maximum volume. "This is Maya Torres, call sign Echo, broadcasting on all frequencies. I am a United States Army veteran under attack by forces claiming to represent the American government. If anyone receives this transmission, please contact the FBI, the media, and your congressional representatives. The evidence of massive corruption and illegal operations will be released automatically if this transmission stops." The psychological effect was immediate and dramatic. Cross's tactical teams had been told they were conducting a classified raid against foreign operatives. They hadn't expected to assault an American veteran who is broadcasting her situation to the world in real time. Maya continued her broadcast while monitoring Rivera's progress toward the extraction point. "I am transmitting from KCSF 94.7 FM in Cascade Falls, Oregon. The men attacking my station are here to prevent the exposure of Operation Silent Thunder, a conspiracy involving arms trafficking, corruption of military intelligence, and the murder of American soldiers who discovered evidence of these crimes." Through her security cameras, Maya could see confusion spreading among the assault team. Some were backing away from their positions, unwilling to participate in what was clearly an illegal operation against an American citizen. Others were looking to their commander for guidance about how to proceed when their target was broadcasting their actions to the world. But Maya knew that Cross's desperation would overcome any hesitation. He'd come too far and killed too many people to let Echo's voice destroy his empire. The real assault would begin within minutes, and Maya would need every advantage she'd prepared during 8 years of waiting for this moment. Rivera's team was almost at the extraction point. Colonel Mitchell was in position with medical support, and Maya's evidence upload was at 60% completion. All she had to do was survive long enough to see justice served. The first shots came through Maya's broadcast booth windows at 2:47 a.m., high-velocity rounds designed to disable her equipment rather than kill her immediately. Cross's tactical team had received updated orders. Take Echo alive for interrogation about what other evidence she might have gathered during 12 years of investigation. Maya rolled away from her console as glass exploded around her, her voice never wavering as she continued broadcasting. "Shots fired! Shots fired! Armed assault in progress at KCSF radio station. I repeat, American forces are conducting an illegal attack on a U.S. citizen attempting to expose government corruption." Her backup communication systems automatically activated, ensuring her transmission continued, even as her primary equipment sparked and smoked. Maya had designed redundancy into every critical system, knowing that Cross's people would try to silence her by destroying her ability to communicate with the outside world. "Lima 7, report status," Maya called into her handheld radio while crawling toward her emergency equipment cache. "Echo, we're 30 seconds from extraction point. Shepard is in position with medical support. Park is stable but needs immediate surgical intervention." "Copy that. Once you're clear, proceed to Safe House Delta 7. Shepard has the coordinates." Maya's security cameras showed tactical teams moving into position around her building while their commander spoke urgently into his radio. He could read his lips well enough to understand that he was receiving conflicting orders from his superiors. Someone higher up the chain of command was questioning the legitimacy of their operation. Maya's worldwide broadcast was having the intended effect. Her transmission was being picked up by ham radio operators, emergency services, and military monitoring stations across the western United States.
Social media posts were already appearing with audio recordings of her situation, and news outlets were beginning to investigate reports of a government assault on a civilian radio station. But Cross had prepared for this possibility. In his mobile command center, he was activating media suppression protocols that would classify Maya's broadcast as part of a domestic terrorism investigation. Within hours, social media companies would remove posts about the incident, news outlets would receive official statements about a successful counterterrorism operation, and anyone attempting to verify Maya's claims would be told they were spreading dangerous misinformation. Operator, this is Director Cross. Implement Protocol 7 Alpha immediately. All recordings of tonight's incident are to be classified under the Domestic Security Act. Any media outlets reporting on the situation are to be advised that they're interfering with an ongoing national security operation. Protocol 7 Alpha was Cross's most powerful tool for controlling information. It allowed him to invoke national security classifications that could suppress almost any story, silence almost any witness, and discredit almost any evidence. He'd used it dozens of times over the past 12 years to eliminate threats to his network. But Maya had anticipated the strategy. Her evidence upload included detailed documentation of Protocol 7 Alpha, including recordings of Cross using it to cover up previous crimes. When the automated release triggered, it would expose not just the arms trafficking conspiracy, but the entire information suppression apparatus that had protected it. "This is Echo, continuing emergency broadcast," Maya transmitted while moving toward her hidden armory. "Director Nathan Cross of the Defense Intelligence Agency is currently attempting to suppress this transmission using classified protocols designed to silence American citizens who expose government corruption. The evidence being released tonight includes documentation of these illegal censorship operations." Cross's face went pale as he heard his name broadcast to monitoring stations across the country. Maya Torres wasn't just exposing Operation Silent Thunder, she was revealing his entire network of corruption, suppression, and murder that had operated for over a decade. "All units, take that station immediately," Cross ordered. "Authorization for lethal force approved. Eliminate all personnel and destroy all equipment." The assault began in earnest as tactical teams breached Maya's building from multiple directions. But they quickly discovered that the former communications specialist had learned more than radio operations during her military service. The building was a maze of reinforced positions, automated defenses, and tactical surprises that had been 12 years in the making. Smoke grenades triggered ventilation systems that cleared the air in Maya's position while filling assault routes with disorienting fog. Motion sensors activated strobing lights that disrupted night vision equipment, and hidden speakers throughout the building began broadcasting recordings of Cross's own voice giving illegal orders, creating psychological warfare against his own troops. Stand down, one of the tactical team leaders shouted into his radio. "We're assaulting an American citizen who's broadcasting evidence of our own command structure giving illegal orders. This is not a legitimate operation." But Cross's most loyal operatives continued the assault, knowing that their own survival depended on silencing Echo before her evidence release was complete. They advanced through the building room by room, following the sound of Maya's continuing broadcast, deeper into the underground levels where her server room was located.
Maya's voice remained steady and professional as she continued coordinating Ribera's extraction while defending her position. "Lima 7, confirm you have reached Shepard." "Affirmative, Echo. All personnel accounted for. Park is receiving medical care. We're moving to safe house now." "Outstanding. Your mission priority is now delivering your evidence to FBI Deputy Director Sarah Martinez. She's been investigating Cross's network independently and has the authority to act on what you've discovered." Maya's tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly, but her mission was succeeding. Rivera's team was safe, her evidence upload was at 85% completion, and her broadcast had been recorded by enough independent sources that Cross couldn't suppress it completely. As assault teams closed in on her final position, Maya activated the last line of defense she'd hoped never to use. Throughout the building, thermite charges began destroying sensitive equipment and classified materials that could never be allowed to fall into enemy hands. The explosion would ensure that Cross's people found nothing useful in her station,
but it would also eliminate her escape routes and force a final confrontation with people who'd already demonstrated their willingness to murder American soldiers to protect their conspiracy. Maya keyed her radio one final time as smoke and flames began filling her server room. "This is Echo. Final transmission. The evidence is uploaded, the truth is released, and justice will be served. To anyone listening, remember that democracy depends on citizens willing to stand against corruption, regardless of the cost." The building shook with secondary explosions as Maya's automated destruction sequence ensured that 12 years of careful preparation would not benefit her enemies. But even as her fortress burned around her, Maya smiled with grim satisfaction. She'd accomplished her mission. Echo had guided her final patrol home.
What Cross's tactical teams found in the burning remnants of Maya's radio station was far worse than resistance. They found nothing. No bodies, no equipment, no evidence that Echo had ever existed beyond the voice that continued broadcasting from an unknown location even as her building collapsed in flames. Maya had vanished into a network of escape tunnels she'd spent 8 years digging through the mountain bedrock beneath her station. The tunnels connected to natural cave systems that honeycombed the Oregon Cascades, providing her with multiple exit points miles from the assault site. As Cross's team searched the ruins, Maya was already moving through passages that would take her to a secondary communication site hidden in an abandoned mine shaft 15 miles away. Her voice crackled through Cross's command frequencies with the kind of confidence that came from a perfect tactical withdrawal. "Director Cross, this is Echo. I trust your teams are enjoying the warm reception at my former location. Did you really think 12 years of preparation wouldn't include contingency plans for exactly this scenario?" Cross grabbed the radio from his communications officer, his face flushed with rage and desperation. "Torres, this is over. You're alone, without resources, and every law enforcement agency in the country will be hunting you within hours." "Nathan," Maya's voice was calm, almost conversational. "You still don't understand what you're dealing with. I was never alone. The evidence upload completed 3 minutes ago. Copies are now in the hands of FBI Deputy Director Martinez, Senator Patricia Coleman's Oversight Committee, journalists at 6 major newspapers, and intelligence analysts in 4 allied countries. Your network is finished." The truth of Maya's words became apparent as Cross's secure phones began ringing simultaneously. His superiors were demanding explanations for why their counter-terrorism operation was being reported as an assault on an American veteran. Allied intelligence services were requesting clarification about arms trafficking allegations involving American officials, and congressional oversight committees were scheduling emergency hearings to investigate claims of massive intelligence community corruption. Maya continued her broadcast from her hidden position, her voice now reaching a global audience as international news outlets picked up her transmission. "This is Staff Sergeant Maya Torres, call sign Echo, broadcasting evidence of the largest intelligence conspiracy in American history. For 12 years, Director Nathan Cross has operated a network that sold American weapons to terrorists, murdered military personnel who discovered their crimes, and used classified protocols to suppress evidence of their activities. In the Oregon wilderness, Colonel Mitchell was coordinating the most important medical evacuation of his career. Sergeant Park's condition had stabilized enough for transport, but Rivera and his team were carrying evidence that would revolutionize understanding of how deeply corruption had penetrated the intelligence community. Shepherd to Echo, Mitchell transmitted on a frequency he knew Maya would be monitoring. Lima 7 is secure, medical situation stabilized, and we're moving to FBI custody. How's your situation? I'm mobile and maintaining communication. The upload is complete, so my primary mission is accomplished. But we've got a problem, Shepard. Cross isn't going to let this end here. He's too compromised to surrender, and he's got resources we haven't identified yet. Maya's assessment proved correct within the hour. Instead of attempting to contain the scandal through normal channels, Cross activated what he called the Omega Protocol, a last resort option that would eliminate all witnesses and evidence while framing the entire situation as a foreign intelligence operation designed to destabilize American national security. Cross's remaining loyal operatives began implementing a plan that would make Maya, Rivera, Mitchell, and anyone else connected to Operation Silent Thunder appear to be foreign agents who had infiltrated American military units years ago.
Fabricated evidence would support claims that the arms trafficking allegations were disinformation designed to undermine legitimate intelligence operations. But Cross had underestimated the scope of Maya's 12-year investigation. Her evidence files included detailed documentation of the Omega Protocol itself, complete with recordings of Cross discussing how to frame American soldiers as foreign operatives if his network was ever exposed. This is Echo, continuing emergency broadcast to all stations. Director Cross is now implementing what he calls the Omega Protocol, designed to frame American military personnel as foreign agents. The evidence release includes recordings of Cross himself planning to betray United States soldiers to protect his criminal enterprise. The psychological impact on Cross's remaining operatives was immediate and devastating. Men and women who had joined his network believing they were protecting national security suddenly realized they were working for someone willing to commit treason against American military personnel. Defections began almost immediately as operatives contacted legitimate authorities to distance themselves from Cross's crimes. Maya monitored the cascade of communications as Cross's network collapsed in real time. Assets were surrendering to FBI field offices across the country, financial institutions were freezing accounts linked to the trafficking operations, and Allied intelligence services were providing evidence of their own encounters with Cross's illegal arms sales.
Director Cross, Maya broadcast on his personal frequency, your operatives are abandoning you faster than you abandoned my team 12 years ago. It's over, Nathan. You can surrender now and face trial, or you can continue running until we hunt you down like the criminal you are. But Cross wasn't finished fighting. His final gambit involved activating sleeper assets within federal law enforcement agencies, people who owed their careers to his network and would do anything to protect their positions. If he couldn't suppress the evidence through legitimate channels, he would use corrupt officials to create chaos that would buy him time to escape the country. Maya's monitoring equipment detected new threats emerging as compromised FBI agents began coordinating efforts to arrest Rivera's team before they could deliver their evidence to legitimate authorities. Cross was using his final resources to turn the justice system against the very people trying to expose his crimes. Shepard, this is Echo. Be advised, hostile federal agents are moving to intercept your route to FBI headquarters. Cross has activated sleeper assets within law enforcement. You need alternative extraction immediately. Maya realized that her mission was far from over. Exposing Cross's network was only the beginning. Now she had to ensure that the evidence reached people who could act on it while protecting the survivors of Operation Silent Thunder from one final betrayal by the system they'd served. The ghost of Echo was about to become very real for anyone still protecting Nathan Cross's criminal empire. FBI Deputy Director Sarah Martinez had been investigating anomalies in intelligence operations for 3 years, following financial trails and communication patterns that suggested massive corruption within multiple agencies. When Maya's evidence upload arrived at her secure server, Martinez finally understood the scope of what she'd been hunting and realized that her own investigation had been compromised from the beginning. Cross's sleeper assets within the FBI included Assistant Director Robert Hayes, who'd been feeding information about Martinez's investigation back to the conspiracy for months. As Rivera's team approached FBI headquarters with their evidence, Hayes was coordinating with Cross to ensure they never reached legitimate authorities. Director Martinez, Hayes entered her office with a tactical team behind him. I have orders to place you under immediate arrest for receiving classified materials from foreign operatives. Martinez looked at the fabricated arrest warrant with cold professionalism. She'd been expecting this moment since Maya's transmission had begun exposing the network. Robert, you're making a mistake that will end your career and probably land you in federal prison. The evidence against Cross's network is overwhelming. The evidence is fabricated. Disinformation designed to undermine American intelligence operations, Hayes replied, but his voice carried uncertainty that suggested he was beginning to understand the scope of his betrayal. You're under arrest for conspiracy to aid foreign intelligence services. Maya's voice cut through their argument as her broadcast penetrated the FBI's secure communication systems. Deputy Director Martinez, this is Echo.
Be advised that Assistant Director Hayes has been compromised by Cross's network for over 2 years. The evidence files include recordings of Hayes receiving payments from arms trafficking operations and coordinating the suppression of investigations into military contractor fraud. Hayes's face went pale as he realized that his secret arrangement with Cross had been documented in detail. The tactical team behind him exchanged uncertain glances, suddenly questioning the legitimacy of their orders. Furthermore, Maya continued, Hayes is currently coordinating with corrupt agents to intercept Lima 7 before they can deliver evidence to legitimate authorities. Director Martinez, you need to implement your emergency protocols immediately. Martinez smiled grimly and activated a security code that sent alerts to loyal FBI agents throughout the building. Within minutes, Hayes found himself surrounded by agents loyal to the Constitution rather than Cross's conspiracy. 30 miles away, Colonel Mitchell was facing his own confrontation with corrupted authority. A convoy of vehicles claiming to be FBI reinforcements had intercepted his route to headquarters, but their tactical formations and equipment signatures were wrong for legitimate federal agents. Shepard, this is Echo. The vehicles surrounding you are not legitimate FBI. They're Cross's people using stolen federal credentials. Recommend immediate evasive action. Mitchell had been expecting this possibility since Maya's evidence release had begun triggering responses across the intelligence community. His modified ambulance was equipped with defensive systems that most people would never associate with medical transport, and he'd spent 5 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Echo, I'm going to need guidance for alternative extraction. Park needs surgical facilities within 2 hours, but I can't risk delivering my passengers to compromised federal agents. Maya's tactical mind immediately shifted into complex logistical planning. Shepard, proceed to coordinates I'm uploading now. There's a private medical facility operated by Dr. Lisa Wong, former Army surgeon who's been investigating medical cover-ups related to Cross's operations. She's expecting you and has surgical capabilities for Park's injuries. Dr. Wong had been recruited into Maya's network 3 years earlier when her attempts to investigate suspicious military medical records had been suppressed through official channels. She'd discovered that Cross's network had been falsifying casualty reports to hide evidence of their crimes, and she'd been quietly documenting these cover-ups while preparing to expose them. As Mitchell's ambulance raced toward Wong's facility, Maya coordinated a complex extraction operation that would get Rivera's team to safety while ensuring their evidence reached multiple independent sources. Her voice guided them through back roads and mountain passes that avoided both legitimate law enforcement roadblocks and Cross's illegal interdiction teams. Lima 7, this is Echo. You're 15 minutes from Dr. Wong's facility. Once Park is stable, you'll be transferred to a secure location where FBI Deputy Director Martinez can debrief you personally. The evidence you're carrying will be the foundation for prosecutions that could take down hundreds of corrupt officials. But Cross wasn't finished fighting. In his mobile command center, he was preparing one final gambit that would either allow him to escape justice or destroy everyone who threatened his network. He'd activated what he called the Sanson option, a plan to release classified information that would damage American intelligence operations so severely that the government would be forced to suppress all investigations into his activities to protect national security.
If I'm going down, Cross told his remaining loyal operatives, I'm taking the entire intelligence apparatus with me. Release the files on Operation Northwind, Project Blackwater, and the Meridian assets. Every classified operation, every covert asset, every piece of sensitive intelligence we've accessed over the past decade gets released to hostile foreign services. Cross's plan was simple and devastating. Create an intelligence disaster so massive that the government would declassify his entire network's activities to prevent further damage. The investigation into Operation Silent Thunder would be buried alongside dozens of other classified operations, and Cross would disappear into a new identity while the intelligence community spent years trying to repair the damage. Maya intercepted Cross's communications and realized the scope of his final betrayal. He wasn't just willing to commit treason against individual soldiers, he was prepared to compromise American national security on a massive scale to protect himself from prosecution. All stations, this is Echo with emergency intelligence alert. Director Nathan Cross is preparing to release classified American intelligence assets to hostile foreign services. This is not a legitimate intelligence operation. Cross is committing treason to avoid prosecution for arms trafficking and murder. Maya's warning reached loyal intelligence officers who began implementing damage control measures to protect American assets before Cross could compromise them. But the revelation of Cross's Samson option also demonstrated the full scope of his corruption. He'd been prepared from the beginning to betray his own country if his criminal enterprise was threatened. The battle for justice was entering its final phase, and Maya realized that stopping Cross would require more than exposing his crimes. She would have to prevent him from taking American national security down with him as he fell. Maya's hidden communication post in the abandoned mineshaft had become the nerve center for the most critical intelligence operation in decades. Her equipment arrays were tracking Cross's movements, coordinating with loyal federal agents, and monitoring foreign intelligence services who were waiting to receive the classified information that Cross was threatening to release. "Echo to all friendly stations," Maya transmitted on encrypted frequencies that reached intelligence agencies across 3 continents. Cross's Samson option is scheduled to activate in 47 minutes unless we can locate and neutralize his command center. I'm uploading his last known coordinates and movement patterns. FBI Deputy Director Martinez, now operating from a secure facility after Hayes' arrest, coordinated the largest domestic counterintelligence operation in American history. "Echo, this is Martinez. We have teams moving on Cross's known locations, but he's been using the same evasion techniques that kept your network hidden for 12 years. Do you have any tactical advantages we're missing?" Maya smiled grimly as she accessed files she'd hoped never to use. "Director Martinez, Cross made one critical mistake. He's been using communication protocols that I helped design during Operation Silent Thunder. I can track his transmissions and predict his movements because I know exactly how he thinks." The truth was more complex than Maya revealed in her transmission. During her 12 years of investigation, she'd discovered that Cross had been using modified versions of her own communication techniques to coordinate his criminal network. His arrogance in copying her methods had created vulnerabilities that only Echo could exploit. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard as she initiated a cyber attack on Cross's mobile command systems. The man who'd tried to kill her 12 years ago had built his entire operation using technologies that she understood better than anyone alive. His encrypted communications began failing as Maya systematically dismantled his network from the inside. "Cross's command post is located at coordinates I'm transmitting now," Maya announced as her electronic warfare programs painted a perfect picture of his location. "Mobile command vehicle, military-grade communication equipment, and approximately 12 personnel, but be advised, he's positioned in a civilian area specifically to complicate any assault." Cross had positioned his final command post in a shopping center parking lot in suburban Portland, surrounded by innocent civilians who would be endangered by any direct action against his position. His calculation was simple. Federal agents wouldn't risk civilian casualties to arrest him, and the resulting standoff would give him time to complete his intelligence release. But Cross had underestimated both Maya's tactical creativity and the determination of people who'd watched him destroy too many lives. "Shepard to Echo," Colonel Mitchell transmitted from Dr. Wong's medical facility where Sergeant Park was receiving emergency surgery. "Rivera and his team are stable and debriefed. We're ready to provide tactical support if needed." "Negative, Shepard. Your mission is complete. Maintain security for the medical facility and prepare to testify about everything you've witnessed. The final phase is Echo's responsibility." Maya was already moving through the mountain tunnel system toward a position that would give her direct line of sight to Cross's command post. The portable communication equipment she carried represented 12 years of technological innovation, designed specifically for the moment when she would need to outfight the man who'd betrayed Operation Silent Thunder. As Maya established her final position, Cross's voice crackled through her monitoring equipment.
He was making one last attempt to negotiate, using the intelligence release as leverage to secure safe passage out of the country. This is Director Cross to any federal authority listening. I'm prepared to cancel the intelligence release in exchange for guaranteed safe passage to a non-extradition country. You have 30 minutes to respond before American assets worldwide are compromised. Maya keyed her microphone for what she knew would be her final transmission as echo. Nathan, this is Maya Torres. You have 10 seconds to surrender unconditionally, or I'm going to demonstrate why Echo never lost a patrol. Maya, Cross's voice carried the desperation of a man who'd finally realized that all his power and influence couldn't protect him from the consequences of his actions. The intelligence community will never recover from the revelations in your evidence files. The intelligence community will recover because it's built on principles that you betrayed. But your network won't survive what happens next. Maya activated a program she'd spent 3 years developing, a complete reversal of Cross's Samson option that would expose his own criminal activities while protecting legitimate American intelligence assets. Instead of releasing classified information to foreign services, her program would deliver detailed evidence of Cross's crimes to law enforcement agencies worldwide, while simultaneously protecting the operational security of loyal American intelligence officers. Cross, you spent 12 years using my communication techniques to build your criminal empire, but you never understood the most important lesson of Operation Silent Thunder: loyalty to the mission and to the people who serve alongside you.
Maya's cyber attack dismantled Cross's systems with surgical precision, isolating his command post and preventing any unauthorized release of classified information. His mobile command center became a digital island, cut off from communication networks and unable to transmit the intelligence that he'd planned to use as his final weapon. Through her scope, Maya could see Cross emerging from his command vehicle, hands raised in surrender as federal agents surrounded his position. The man who'd ordered the deaths of American soldiers to protect his criminal profits was finally facing justice after 12 years of evading consequences. All stations, this is Echo. Target is in custody. The Samson option has been neutralized. American intelligence assets are secure. Maya remained in position, watching as federal agents arrested Cross and his remaining operatives. The shopping center that had been chosen as their final stronghold was now the site of their complete defeat. 12 years after Operation Silent Thunder had been betrayed, justice was finally being served. But Maya's mission wasn't complete until she was certain that every piece of Cross's network had been dismantled and every survivor of his conspiracy was safe. She'd spent too many years preparing for this moment to risk an incomplete victory. As Cross was led away in handcuffs, Maya began planning the final phase of her operation, ensuring that the evidence she'd gathered would result in prosecutions that would prevent anyone from rebuilding the criminal empire that had cost so many lives. Echo's voice would guide one final patrol home: the American people returning to a democracy protected from the corruption that had threatened to destroy it from within. 6 months after the arrest of Director Nathan Cross and the dismantling of the largest intelligence conspiracy in American history, Maya Torres stood in a congressional hearing room where she'd once thought she would never be welcome again. The same government that had declared her dead 12 years earlier was now awarding her the Presidential Medal of Freedom for exposing corruption that had threatened the foundation of American democracy. Senator Patricia Coleman, who had chaired the oversight committee that investigated Operation Silent Thunder, read the citation that would restore Maya's honor and acknowledge sacrifices that had been hidden for over a decade. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres, call sign Echo, demonstrated extraordinary courage in exposing a criminal conspiracy that spanned multiple agencies and threatened American national security. Her dedication to truth and justice, maintained through 12 years of exile, resulted in the prosecution of 127 individuals and the recovery of over $400 million in stolen government funds.
Maya accepted the medal with the same quiet professionalism that had characterized her military service, but her thoughts were with the people who hadn't survived to see justice served. Operation Silent Thunder had cost too many lives, and no medal could restore what had been lost to Cross's conspiracy. The aftermath of Maya's evidence release had been swift and comprehensive. Cross himself had been sentenced to life in prison without parole after pleading guilty to charges including treason, arms trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and violations of the Espionage Act. His network had collapsed completely as operatives across multiple agencies faced prosecution for their roles in 12 years of criminal activity. Assistant Director Hayes had received a 25-year sentence for his role in suppressing FBI investigations and coordinating attacks on American citizens. The private contractors who had built Cross's surveillance and suppression apparatus had lost their security clearances and government contracts, and the financial institutions that had laundered money from arms trafficking operations faced billions of dollars in penalties and federal oversight. Most importantly, the evidence had led to systemic reforms that would prevent future conspiracies from operating with the same impunity. Congressional oversight of intelligence operations had been strengthened significantly. Whistleblower protections had been expanded to include military personnel who exposed illegal activities, and new financial monitoring systems made it virtually impossible for corrupt officials to profit from arms trafficking or other criminal enterprises. Lieutenant Alex Rivera, now promoted to major, had testified before congressional committees about the 12-year investigation that he and his team had conducted while living under assumed identities. His evidence had been crucial in understanding how Cross's network had evolved and expanded since Operation Silent Thunder, and his testimony had helped prosecutors build cases against hundreds of co-conspirators. Sergeant David Park had recovered completely from his injuries and was serving as a special advisor to the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, helping to identify and investigate other potential conspiracies within military contracting operations. His technical expertise and first-hand knowledge of Cross's methods had proven invaluable in ensuring that similar networks couldn't rebuild. Colonel James Mitchell had been appointed to lead a new joint task force dedicated to preventing intelligence community corruption. His years of independent investigation combined with his military experience and unquestioned integrity made him the perfect choice to implement reforms that would protect both national security and constitutional rights. Dr. Lisa Wong had been recognized for her role in documenting medical cover-ups related to Cross's operations, and she now serves as a special consultant to the Veterans Administration, helping to identify and treat soldiers whose medical records had been falsified to hide evidence of criminal activities. But perhaps the most significant change was in the culture of accountability that Maya's actions had created throughout the intelligence community. Her example had inspired other veterans and current service members to report suspicious activities, leading to the exposure of smaller conspiracies before they could grow into threats comparable to Cross's network. Maya herself had chosen to return to Cascade Falls, where she was rebuilding her radio station with equipment that was purely civilian in nature. The townspeople had learned about her true identity during the congressional hearings, but their response had been unanimous support for the woman who had risked everything to expose corruption that threatened American democracy. KCSF 94.7 FM was back on the air, broadcasting the same mix of music, weather reports, and community news that had made it a beloved part of mountain life. But Maya's voice now carried additional authority as someone who had proven that individual courage could triumph over institutional corruption.
Late at night, when the mountain's silence felt heavy and the weight of memories threatened to overwhelm her, Maya would tune her radio to military frequencies and listen to the voices of soldiers and airmen conducting operations around the world. The voices were different, the call signs had changed, but the dedication remained constant. Sometimes she would hear young communications specialists coordinating complex operations with the same precision and calm professionalism that had once defined Echo. When she did, Maya would smile with the knowledge that a new generation of patriots was carrying on the mission of protecting freedom and democracy wherever it was threatened. Maya's phone would still ring occasionally with calls from FBI Director Martinez, who had been promoted after her role in exposing Cross's network. Sometimes there were questions about operational details from the investigation. Sometimes there were requests for her assessment of potential security threats. Always there was the implicit understanding that ECHO remained available if democracy needed defending again. But Maya had found peace in her return to civilian life, satisfaction in the knowledge that her 12-year mission had been completed successfully. The conspiracy that had tried to kill her and her teammates had been exposed, its perpetrators had faced justice, and reforms had been implemented to prevent similar threats from emerging. On quiet Tuesday mornings, when Maya was adjusting her radio equipment and preparing for another day of serving her community, she would sometimes remember the voice that had started everything. Lieutenant Rivera calling for help through the darkness, using call signs that belonged to soldiers who were supposed to be dead. ECHO had answered that call, as she had answered every call throughout her military career. She had guided the lost patrol home. Not just Rivera and his team, but the American people themselves, returning them to a democracy protected from the corruption that had threatened to destroy it from within. Maya Torres was officially alive again, her service record corrected, her honor restored. But more importantly, her voice had reminded the world that sometimes the greatest acts of patriotism come from those willing to sacrifice everything to ensure that truth prevails over power and that justice ultimately guides everyone home.